did things really change? Yes, we got integrated, but then, when the black folks start moving in, the white folks started moving out.
Oh, gentrification.
Well, white flight, and then when things started falling apart in our neighborhoods, then gentrification happened. And now some of it was good because it builds the community back up and, gets things back in. But then it gets so expensive to live in these areas that, you start getting pushed out of your own neighborhood.
Right.
So, did it work? I have a lot of love and respect for the civil rights movement and for Dr. King and Fred Shuttlesworth and Rosa Parks and other people that participated in this movement. But and I will say the biggest thing that came out of it is that we got the right to vote. But when you have certain neighborhoods right here in the greater Birmingham area that redistrict whole apartment complexes that sit right in the middle of your city so that those kids in that neighborhood get bused to a completely different school, even though they live in that city, and they get bused to a school in a different city. Did it work? Or did they just change the game? So we have the appearance of integration, but do we really? Did things really change? Yes, we got integrated, but then, when the black folks start moving in, the white folks started moving out.
Oh, gentrification.
Well, white flight, and then when things started falling apart in our neighborhoods, then gentrification happened. And now some of it was good because it builds the community back up and, gets things back in. But then it gets so expensive to live in these areas that, you start getting pushed out of your own neighborhood.
Right.
So, did it work? I have a lot of love and respect for the civil rights movement and for Dr. King and Fred Shuttlesworth and Rosa Parks and other people that participated in this movement. But and I will say the biggest thing that came out of it is that we got the right to vote. But when you have certain neighborhoods right here in the greater Birmingham area that redistrict whole apartment complexes that sit right in the middle of your city so that those kids in that neighborhood get bused to a completely different school, even though they live in that city, and they get bused to a school in a different city. Did it work? Or did they just change the game? So we have the appearance of integration, but do we really?
Which leads back to what I was saying about tearing down the systematic oppression. I mean, that's just like the foundation of how, they have, this system have manipulated and controlled and even attempted to destroy the black community. And unfortunately, our own folks are embracing this system to sometimes even get ahead. That's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother show. Because trust me, this show particular, this episode here is going to branch off into some definitely other avenues and other things that we're going to discuss so that we can go in depth and really break it down. Because if we continue this route, we're going to shift off into another direction. So we're going to roll it back in. In addition to the riots, right? Here in Birmingham, we had an issue. Now, it's not just Birmingham that's doing this. It's like a nationwide thing. But one of the biggest things in Birmingham, we had the Confederate monuments removed by Mayor Woodfin. And Tennessee, what else is it? Georgia, I don't know.
Carolina, Virginia.
Virginia, right. A couple other areas that have...
I think New Orleans had already taken theirs down.
taking down Confederate monuments, and this has happened all over the country. Some have already happened, and some are currently happening as we speak, or have happened the past week or two. And it's long overdue. And what's amazing to me is, let's talk about one gentleman I want to talk about in particular, Jermaine Funny Man Johnson. All right, so first off, if you're watching this, we're behind you, bro. Straight up. We are behind you. We support you. I understand your anger. I understand your hurt, the pain that you feel, the frustration you feel, because you were, my friend, was thrown completely under the doggone bus. And not only were you thrown under the bus, they backed up and ran over you, and then ran over you again, because this man was accused of the riots that happened in downtown Birmingham.
Yeah, he was accused of inciting the riots. Which is well, what he actually said was, "Let's go tear down this monument."
Right.
He didn't say, and then let's go break windows,
right,
and tear up people's stores, and go to the business district, right, the historically black business district, and right, start tearing stuff up. You never said any of that.
Yet I mind you, 86% of the businesses downtown are pretty much black. So why would he do that? Makes no sense. He's already gave his speech. We're not necessarily here to defend you, my brother. We're just putting out that to you that we appreciate you, we support you, and stay in the fight. However, his situation is interesting because folks will use anybody and anything as a scapegoat.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have somebody to blame, right? So
right.
It was easy to blame him.
Exactly. He's a big-time Alabama fan. Big-time Alabama and Nick Saban fan, and I went to the Alabama fans page, and man, the stuff that I saw from the white community was very frustrating, but not surprising, because here's the thing. What I need the white community to understand is your Confederate statues that you worship so much. It is a representation of what oppressed black people. It's a representation of the evil that has been condemning black people. And if you support this, guess what? That puts you in the same doggone category. And I have no problem calling a Confederate supporter evil, because that's what the Confederate stood for. Don't give me no history about your generals and what the army did and all that. That means nothing to me. You were fighting to maintain and sustain slavery. It is not okay. It is not right. And for you to condone and embrace an idea of that matter, it's just really frustrating. Very frustrating.
What's funny to me is, like, y'all love, when things like this happen, y'all love to quote Dr. King. You're like, oh, he was such a fine, upstanding citizen, and he did things the right way. But y'all didn't like it when he did things the right way either.
No, you didn't.
Don't forget where we are.
Oh, there's pictures of what you did to him, or what you thought of him. I remember one video specifically when Dr. King was walking and he got hit in the head with a rock. That man can take if anything, he probably take a punch, because that rock bounced clean off his dang on head. Like, I was just like, how? Like, for me personally, I have an aggression where I don't mind fighting. I don't mind getting in the dirt with somebody or in a situation. I don't mind. I've always been taught, you don't start fights, you finish them. So I'll never be the one to be like, let's start it. I'll be the one to end it, though. Because this is what's happening. Them folks, they started it. Now we're ending it.
So, okay. Dr. King is not alive. And that's because a lot of y'all, the same people who were mad about the Confederate monument coming down, did not like the fact that not only did he advocate for black people and as a whole, he tried to take it to the next step and advocate for poor people as well. And that's when y'all were like, oh no.
It's messing with your money.
It's messing with your money. Some of y'all. Mm-hmm. Now, some of y'all that, aren't as wealthy as others, you're like, well, Maybe, right? So it was kind of like what Malcolm X had been trying to do with his part of the movement is create more black wealth, and and they didn't agree, but towards the end, of their lives, they came to an agreement that I think Dr. King was like, maybe we should have been a little more radical. And I think Malcolm X was saying, well, maybe we should have been a little more peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
And it should have been it should have been like somewhere in the middle.
Right. Because the thing about them too, both of them, is that their ideas in regards to handling this, I don't think they're not 100% wrong.
No.
I think that if you could have took both of them and combined their efforts, like literally combined their efforts, I think it would have been very effective, because, this is leading on to the next part of what we were going to talk about, and in regards to the protests and the riots, like the police, okay, the excessive force during the protests and things like that. All right, so my thing is this: if I see a woman, if I see a child, if I see another guy being attacked, mauled by the police, doing this cause, and they didn't do anything wrong, I'm sorry. I am going. It's going to be in me. Whether I could try to fight myself all I want to, it is in me to go help that person. Okay, it's in me to go help that person, because the things that I have seen, the most recent incident was the 75-year-old man, I think it was, that was pushed back, and that man fell back, and his head was just bleeding. And then they're going to say, oh, well, they're suspended. Suspended? This is the crap that I'm talking about. They're just suspended.
And to be fair, that was a white man that they
pushed down. I mean,
an older white man.
And the thing about it is, it's like, it shouldn't be done to anybody. Okay? It shouldn't be done to anybody. This man was attacked. Okay? However you want to push down, attacked and hurt. And they're okaying it by they need to be immediately fired, and their charges need to be pressed against it. It should be no hesitation, no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
And to show the fact that there is a problem within the system, 57 of the of people within that force, that same force where that man got suspended, resigned. So
that just shows you.
If you're a police officer, whether you're white, black, or whatever, and you say that you are a good cop and a servant of the people, why can't you hold your fellow fraternal order of the police brothers accountable? So accountability is something that a lot of people on the other side of this, we'll say the All Lives Matter crowd, because I won't say that only white people have been saying All Lives Matter. It's been a lot of people of different races, including black people, that have used the All Lives Matter hashtag in opposition to Black Lives Matter. And a lot of them talk about accountability. So let's talk about accountability within your communities, within the police force. If you see that there's excessive force being used on a person who is complying and who is not a threat to you, unarmed, then why aren't y'all speaking up? You want us to speak up when people in our community aren't doing the right thing and reprimand them and call them bad characters and bad actors and thugs and criminals. You want us to hold them accountable. Why aren't y'all doing the same thing? Why aren't you holding people that work with you accountable?
Right.
Why aren't you holding these cops that plant drugs and use their power to harass and rape people in the community and harass women in particular in the community, why aren't you holding them accountable? You want us to have accountability. Where is your accountability? Where is the accountability in the system that when a white kid commits a crime or they have like an ounce of marijuana on them, they get maybe a year and they don't even serve their full sentence. But if a black kid is caught with an ounce of marijuana, it's 20 years minimum. Where is the accountability there?
See, now you're talking about an entirely flawed system, or a system per se that's designed to hold us hostage. I've been saying this before. We're gonna, matter of fact, I'm gonna say this now. We're gonna have a show on that because there's some things that I want to bring out, and I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole. But I will say this on the accountability tip.
Because we can bring up plenty of examples where it's clearly these two things are alike, but they're not the same.
Right. Exactly. And we definitely need to embrace and acknowledge and do a show on that because it's a lot. We can definitely do an entire show on that. We'll start with the police force with accountability, like we're saying. I know I have some friends that are cops, that are police officers. I have some former service members, some battle buddies that I've had that are police officers now. And, I look to them and I wonder what they're doing. My thing is, right from wrong. And what's really disturbing is that the police force is meant to serve and protect. Now, I was watching listening to an NPR segment, and they were talking about how the LAPD, they requesting the LAPD be defunded and giving these different reasons and so many different options of how they can be defunded and why, whatever. One community leader put out and said that, councilman said that the LAPD are asked to solve the issues of homelessness, are asked to solve the issues of various communities, disputes. They're asked to do all these things. And then he said they're overworked, and yet in the same breath, they are overfunded. And I was utterly confused just by how he brought those two dynamics into one statement. Then I thought to myself, I said, none of that really matters. What we really need to look at is the character of the officer. Okay? That's what it boils down to. What type of person are these officers, and what type of individuals are the man and the woman that is next to them? A lot of these folks are just following orders. Is that an excuse? No. Do I understand that? Yeah, I understand that better than anybody, especially being a former service member. However, there is right and there is wrong. And I have seen on a few occasions where recently there was this black female officer that literally jumped down the throat of a white officer for basically throwing aside this young female protester that was on her hands and knees and had her hands up. And this guy just slung her to the side like, get out of my way. And she ripped him a new one. And in another instance I saw a couple years ago, there was another black officer getting in the face of another white officer for basically conducting an inappropriate search and just conducting himself wrong and just treating and speaking inappropriately to the individual they pulled over. And it was caught on tape, and he handled it very well. He was like, "No, we're not going to do that." He said, "What you're going to do is you're going to gather yourself, you're going to leave the premises, you're going to escort him." Like, just took control of the situation. That's what we need to do. That's what you need to do. Okay, you guys need to take control of the situation and stop it from happening. All right, period. This stuff is not hard. This is not some mathematical equation that's unsolvable. This is just blatant, common dadgum sense. Okay? If a person says they can't breathe, for example, all right, Then I heard the comment of, well, if you could say you can't breathe, you can breathe. Okay, once again, evil, despicable stupidity, things like that, things that people are saying, it's just what baffles me. Like, maybe this need to be reenacted on some of these folks so they can see how it feels. Choked to the inch to you on the brink of death. Okay? And really and truly understand what people are going through. And honestly, I don't know if that really will matter, because some of these people are just despicable human beings. That's what we have to understand. That they're just not good people in this world. They're not. And they tend to wear a badge. They tend to have these titles of doctors and lawyers and judges and politicians, senators. Oh, and dare I say it, president. There's just some people that are just rotten. And that's what you need to acknowledge and understand. And the only thing that you can do with something that's rotten is throw it away. You got to get rid of it. Because if you don't get rid of an infection, it spreads. And it affects everything else. So, all those police officers, right? All those police officers that sit idly by with the dumbfound look on your face, all right, you're just as guilty as the man or the woman that actually committing the act. For those men and women those cops that harass people for no particular reason, and you're the partner of that person, and you don't tell them, stop, there ain't nothing wrong with this situation, let them go, and you don't have probable cause, you're just as guilty. Accountability is as simple as saying stop. I know you have a fraternal code. I know you don't want to snitch on each other. But the streets is the same way. But at some point in time, your moral compass should reign true north. I don't care what clique you're a part of. I don't care who your friend. If you are doing something that is not right, that is hurting people, you give me no choice. And if I ain't gonna snitch on you, well, I do the next best thing. I'll stop you myself. If you're so afraid or so worried about discrediting your people, stop them yourself.
I mean, and that's like, and it's not just the white police officers that
it's black too.
It's the black ones too.
And
it's police officers of all colors. So it's not, and it's a lot of times it's not like, oh, it's just the white cops doing this.
Yep. They just when there's two black cops just got fired.
In Atlanta.
Right.
Now, the way they're treated is differently.
Right. And that's funny to me. Like, they were instantly fired, but yet the guys in New York, they just suspended. They have to do an investigation. Really? This is a messed up system.
If anything, that should show you that there are differences made, even within the police community. There are differences made between police officers that are white and police officers of color. Mm-hmm. Because I think there was one police officer that was raping black women.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah. That police officer was Asian. And that police officer was held accountable, and he's in prison right now.
Right.
So, with the police and Antifa inciting riots. Now, the president has said Antifa is the cause of the riots being incited, and that's, to some degree, that has happened.
Right.
To another degree, some of the police has, used excessive force in peaceful protests
and
antagonized people into rioting.
And in some cases, they're the ones that's actually wrecking stuff. Of some of the videos and pictures that we saw.
Yeah, we've seen pictures where some of the damage was actually caused by police officers, right, but blamed on the protesters.
Right.
So what is that trying to accomplish other than just creating more chaos? Now, there are some police officers, to their credit, that have seen what has happened, and they decided to march or kneel in solidarity with the protesters.
Right.
To their credit, and you know, I will always give credit where credit is due.
Yep.
And for those police officers, I commend you
Right.
for taking a stand.
Right.
Now, there are some police officers who have used that as a ploy to get protesters closer to them so they could then tear gas them and shoot rubber bullets at them.
No way. I didn't. They. Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't catch that report.
And I think that did happen in LA.
Jeez. Okay. So that explains why the defunding push is really happening. There.
So.
Philly was bad too. Philly was really
Philly
bad.
was bad. New York was bad. They trapped them on the bridge.
Yeah.
Peaceful protesters now,
Right.
not rioters. Peaceful protesters.
They pinned them down in Philly, and like they were against a wall of grass, and these people like trying to run, they couldn't get up, and they were like literally shooting them with rubber bullets, and people like it was just stuff was just despicable, man. I'm really trying to wrap my head around it because this is
been rubber bullets shot at people who were like standing on their own
porches.
porches.
Minnesota did that. Freaking the guy was just like, get inside your home, and then light him up. Like, really? Like, if you are on the porch, that you should, like, really? Like, I'm trying to. Are there any rules of engagement with this situation? Like, and you have people complying now. I'm not talking about people that are like trying to come at you with a machete or people trying to actually shoot at you. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people that are in their homes, as I just said, people that are peacefully protesting, that are just wanting their voice to be heard, that are just standing out there with signs, that are just standing their ground. They're not backing up because you're in their face, right? What it looks like to me, the police that use excessive force is bullies, and I can't stand bullies. That's what it is. It's literally bullying.
Speaking of which, I know we've said previously that we're not going to talk about Trump on this show.
We about to go into that. And every day
I feel like with what's transpired in the last week, we can't avoid talking about him anymore. When Trump had the National Guard and the police tear gas and have them shoot rubber bullets at people that were peacefully protesting
to remove them.
Now, these were people that were not rioting. They weren't setting things on fire. They weren't harming anyone. They just had signs and they were peacefully protesting in the park. And then they were, let's call it what it is, attacked to clear the way so that he could go and take a picture in front of a church that he's never been to with a Bible that he's never cracked open.
Right. Bishop Marianne, I forgot her last name. God bless you. Big ups to you for standing up. I really hope there's no backlash that come for you. And honestly, you being a child or a leader of God, I'm pretty sure you're not worried about that. Because you know from which come your help. I just, I commend her. I commend her.
She was the one that spoke up and said this was all political stunt.
Right, and that is what that stuff like that. I mean, obviously, there's more than just speaking out that needs to be done, but the first step is speaking out. And everyone that has spoke out, everyone that has took a stand, like, thank you. Like, we appreciate you. Okay, but please understand, there's so much work that needs to be done. This is far from being over, and this is just beginning. And those officers, to piggyback, the leaders, actually, the chief, the Houston chief that was literally crying, and I really hope that man was being genuine, because he put up a heck of a fuss and gave up a pretty doggone good statement and argument for the things that he was talking about. And if you really love your people and truly stand out for that community and believe in that community, because here's the thing, when you're a cop, like, your family literally just expanded. You know what I mean? That community is supposed to be your family because you're sworn to serve and protect. How are you going to serve and protect something you don't care anything about?
What are you serving? Who are you serving and what are you protecting?
Exactly.
Is the question.
Exactly. Because if you're serving and protecting the people, I'm pretty sure that the ones that are standing up and that are speaking out, those are the ones that are serving and protecting the people. The ones that are tucking tail, the ones that are being ultra aggressive, that are being insensitive, that are being, just downright wrong, what is your real cause? Don't get it twisted. There's people there are organizations that infiltrate systems just to get in and gain access to certain things. I'm no fool. I mean, we know that there are all types of organizations within this country and out of the country that do this, that infiltrate militaries, that infiltrate police systems or whatever, police jobs or whatever, and gain the training that they need so that they can further their cause, whether it be good or bad. I wonder if those are the people that are in these positions, and if they are, why haven't you figured it out?
I mean, you have people who were known leaders of the KKK that served political office.
Yeah.
And
Black Millennial is a perfect example of that.
And and those people are still walking around free. They're not called terrorists, but Antifa, Trump has
labeled them as terrorists.
A terrorist group.
Right.
Which has it does, and the group, if you do your research, the group has no real leader. It's just a bunch of people scattered that have the same
similar belief
system. But we have names of people that participated in KKK who actually bombed churches, who weren't held accountable until they were on their deathbed.
Right.
Robert Frank Cherry, who bombed the 16th Street Baptist Church, where those little girls died, and not just those girls that died, but the people that were around them that were harmed and are still feeling the effects. One of the sisters of the little girls, I heard this on NPR, had glass in her eyes, and she suffered with that ailment for most of her life, and she never received any kind of compensation.
And that glass was in her eyes for it took a while to and some of it was still there actually,
and it blinded her.
Right.
So and then right when he was about to die, they finally said, "Oh, well, let's prosecute you, and let's take you to jail. Oh, you're dead now, so we did our job." Y'all, it's just you gotta understand. Everything that's happening now is a buildup of things that have been happening for years and years and years and years. And we're finally tired of it. And you know what? I think your children's children now are tired of it too. Because it's more of these young white kids, and shout out to y'all, every young white person that I know that has been participating consistently in these protests. Shout out to you, because you are the future.
You are the future
of your race, and I commend you for taking a stand.
Right.
And a lot of you have been trying to talk to your families too, and I commend you for that too.
Right.
A friend of ours has been consistently protesting. That we worked at the restaurant with.
Lou?
Lou. Yes, shout out to Lou. But not Lou.
Morgan.
Morgan has consistently been out there protesting, posting information.
Shout out to Morgan.
Posting information to bail out the protesters. She's been very consistent, and shout out to you, girl.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Because change is not going to happen if we're the only ones that's right. saying things and protesting and screaming at the top of our lungs. We have to have these allies in place to also stand with us and beside us, and sometimes in the front lines for us.
Right.
For anything to change.
This goes into white American systematic racism that we're kind of leading into. But another shout out to Ryan and Faraz. These two gentlemen, I've worked with them in filmmaking, and they both came to me about allyship, and they have created an issue for themselves, and basically their proceeds from their Kickstarter, they're actually giving that to 4 organizations, and they're giving access to their film that they just finished, and their game. And one of the things that I talked to Ryan and Faraz about, I said, yo, look, I appreciate everything you're doing from the bottom of my heart. It's wonderful that you're doing this. However, the only thing that I ask, it's 2 things I ask you. One is, don't let this be temporary. Don't let this be a spur of the moment oh, I see everybody doing the type thing. And secondly, like, start holding your people accountable, because that's like the most important thing right now. You know, we're not old, man. We're just getting started in this life. You know what I'm saying? With things that we have to do, but we have to be the example for our youngins. As that young lady we saw on Instagram not too long ago, just really talking to her parents. I mean, and I was just shocked that this young lady is having to have the beliefs and ideologies that she had, and having to live in a place like that, and having to deal with that. And I'm pretty sure she loved her parents, but yet she was just, you could just see the frustration on her face and just the disappointment. And that's like, I think any parent's fear, to disappoint their children. And I could just see the disappointment in the young lady's face, and just like, wow, like, are you guys? And she's like really trying to educate them and get them to change their ways and their minds, because, you know, because she realizes that the system is not only broken, it's corrupt, and it's just manipulative in so many different ways. And it's going to take those that are in position right now to change that. We just talked about the federal lynching becoming a federal crime. Like, after 65 years? Like, after 65 years, it finally becomes a crime. Whoop-de-freaking-do. It should have been a crime forever, you know? And it's just this frustrated ideals and things that we see, that I see, and that we see as a group, that are just backwards, and the people are just justifying it like it's okay.
Okay, so wrapping this up, like, the subject was being a Black millennial, and right now, being a Black millennial is really wrapped up in everything that's going on right now. And so, to George Floyd, rest in peace. You had a very complicated past, but you didn't deserve to die like that.
Right.
To Breonna Taylor, sis, you didn't deserve to go the way that you did. And your boyfriend did not deserve to be imprisoned for trying to protect you. So Ahmaud Arbery, you had a complicated past as well, but you didn't deserve to be chased down and murdered the way you were. And rest in peace to you, and I'm sorry that happened to you. This is something we have to talk about, because this is something we have to deal with as Black people and as Black parents. Because for as long as I lived in the neighborhood that we lived in, being a Black girl, I had the police called on me as a kid. Now, the police officer was, in that instance, did not try to hurt or harm me, but the mere fact that I was seen as a threat in my own neighborhood was traumatizing. You know, luckily it wasn't that bad for me. He just, asked me what I was doing. My sister and I had gotten locked out of my house, and I tried to run down to my friend's house to use the bathroom. And I was coming back up the street, and I happened to walk through another neighbor's backyard, which I had done before. And I guess they saw me, and the police was called. And, they asked me who I was and asked me where I lived. And they said, I understand, just make sure you're not walking in other people's yards, even though kids in that neighborhood did that all the time. There was an instance where my family members recently were pulled over by a cop, and it was my mom, my sister, and my kid. And my mom was driving, but they asked for my sister's driver's license, and shined the light in the car and asked who my kid was back there, and wanted to see my kid's ID. and he is 11. So being a Black millennial is living this truth every day. That a lot of times, because of the color of our skin, we don't get the benefit of the doubt. So it was important for us to talk about this, especially with everything that's happening now. So that's why, we just did a review this time. Because while coronavirus, and like the fact that coronavirus is affecting our community and more than the white community, not to say that any of the other communities aren't being affected. I've heard news stories about how it's also deeply affecting the Native American community, which is also a community that has faced a lot of police brutality. I mean, they peacefully protested at Standing Rock, and they were tear gassed while they were praying. So we have to talk about it because we live it. And if we don't talk about it, then it'll just boil over. So that's why we felt like it was important to speak on this.
I'm going to say this closing everything out. The problem is not an unknown problem. It's right there in your face. It's been in our face. This generation will be the generation to spearhead and continue to press forward in the initiative of change. We can continue to talk about it because you're right. We do need to talk about it. But we also need to put actions behind the things that we are saying. Men and women need to stand up, and they need to not only speak out about this, they need to better themselves. I'm a true believer of we are the true holders of our destiny, and we have to continue to put forth maximum effort in regards to how these things will occur. We need to continue to educate ourselves and our children. And I'm not just talking about the issues. I am talking about educating ourselves to allow ourselves to be put into the positions that we need to occupy. Because the places that there are minimal black faces, there need to be more black faces. All right. There need to be more black executives. There need to be more black lawyers. There need to be more black doctors, judges, senators, councilmen. We need to occupy these positions because we are the ones that know the problems and we know how to fix the problems. And I'm not just talking about any individual. I mean an individual that is truly trying to seek and fight for change. The time is now. And this is a long road ahead. Myself and Lilac have dedicated ourselves to this cause. The show, our companies, everything that we're growing and building will be to build the black community, to build a bigger and brighter future, not only for ourselves, but for our children, their children, and young men and black women all around the world and country. Signing off.
One last thing. If you happen to be a white person and you see a black person just being black, please stop calling the police on us for nothing. I mean, before even all of this stuff occurred with Ahmaud and Brianna and George, we were seeing instances where people were calling the police on black people for just being black and being in their space. Not bothering them, just being in the same space.
You keep playing, you want to. You're going to lose your job. You're going to lose your livelihood because you're being ignorant.
Besides all that, stop. Just stop. Because if it were reversed, or for instance, I'm just going to say this real quick and then we can go. The lady that called the police on the man that was bird watching and asked her to leash her dog, if you had called the police and it had been a white man, and you had called the police and you said this white man was threatening me, do you think the police would have believed you? Ask yourself that. Because a huge part of feminism for white women is fighting white men and asking white men to believe you when you're being raped and harassed. So ask yourself if the police would have been so urgent to come to your aid had that man been white.
How can you be for women's rights if you ain't for black rights?
So, like I've mentioned on our social media pages, we're not free until all of us are free.
No justice, no peace.